right, Commissioner Carlson,
Here.
Commissioner Burgess.
Burgess, and I'm
I
here.
got it wrong again.
And I just learned that he called you Terry Ann, and that's how to say it properly?
Yes.
See, I'm learning too.
Burgess. That's right. Commissioner G. Commissioner Kelly.
Present.
Commissioner Meadows.
Here.
Commissioner / Representative Nowak.
Here.
Commissioner Alt Obringer is absent. Commissioner Alt Xavier.
Here.
Chair Arnrich.
Here.
Representative Anderson.
Here.
Representative Foley is absent. Representative Altworth. Here. Representative G. Here. Okay, we have a quorum, and we have Commissioner alternates Obringer and Stepper absent, as well as Representative Foley.
Great, and thank you. I just want to take a quick moment to introduce a couple of new people here. County Board Supervisor Board Chair Candace Anderson is here tonight joining us, and now will be on the board, and is also the new MTC representative with Sue, and Supervisor Diane Burgess, that is here tonight, who represents East County. Welcome. And Councilmember Rita Xavier from San Pablo is here to join us tonight, and we will be seating, I think, 2 more at our next meeting. So a special welcome to you. Now, at this time, if you will please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. And now this will take us to our next item, which is public comment. And this is an opportunity for anyone in the audience, either in person or online, to make public comments on anything that is specifically not on our agenda. And because it's not on the agenda, we really can't discuss that item, but can refer it to staff or consider it for future discussion. So we'll start first. Terry Ann, is there anybody online who'd like to make public comments?
No public comment online.
And are there any written comments?
Yes, we do have one public comment from Debbie Toth.
I said written.
Oh,
Are there any?
no written, but we do have one in person,
Right,
sorry.
that I know. Okay, and now let's go to those that are here present tonight. Debbie, welcome. And we did hold the meeting 1 minute for you.
I appreciate
but you
that
got here
greatly.
early, so.
Yeah, I won't tell you the speed I went to get here on time. Good evening, Chair Arnrich and members of the CCTA board. My name is Debbie Toth. I'm with Choice and Aging, and I am here tonight to thank the Transportation Authority, also to recognize how many women there are on this body, and that's a beautiful thing. I'm excited to see 2 new members of our Board of Supervisors on the committee. And I just want to call out the changes. So for 22 and a half years, I have been participating in advocacy. Amy looks at me knowingly. She's listened to me for a lot of years. But the way in which CCTA interacts with the community is markedly different than it has been historically. I am participating in the Vision Zero work group with CCTA, invited to represent the space of aging and people with disabilities, which has not historically been done in work groups of CCTA. Participating in the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan work group, as well as the body, as well as the Paratransit Coordinating Council. And there is a marked difference in the way that we view all members of Contra Costa County, and the leadership is inclusive. I noticed in the opening comments that everybody should feel belonging here, and I feel a heck of a lot more of that, and I just wanted to say thank you. And good luck, and I'm excited, and welcome.
Thank you, Debbie. Is there anybody else here who'd like to make public comments on
Recording stopped.
Thank you for waiting till I was done.
We'll wait just a second till you get it back on.
Recording in progress.
Great. Thank you, Terry Ann. Is there anybody else here who would like to make public comments?
No further public comment.
All right, thank you. Excellent. This will take us to our next item, which is the consent calendar. Tonight, that's items 5A through 7E. These items are considered routine and can be acted on in one motion and/or have also been seen in subcommittees and recommend for approval to us. Is there any written comments on this? Terry Ann?
No written public comment.
Is there anybody online or here who would like to pull any item for discussion?
No further public comment.
Seeing none, back to the board, and I'll go to Chris Kelly.
Yeah, I just wanted to pull one item for a moment to make a comment, item 6D. My background's in human resources, so I'm really excited to see the item about leadership team development. You know, there have a lot of been changes going on, and I think this will be an opportunity to really connect with staff, to get their feedback, to share information going forward. And I really want to commend the staff and our executive director for bringing this forth. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you for that comment. Now you want to make a motion to approve our consent calendar?
Through the chair, I just wanted
sorry.
to clarify, different committees have different rules. If I wasn't at the December meeting,
You
can
can
I
still vote on
vote?
this.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
You have the right, you have the agenda, and, yeah, absolutely.
Come on,
It's been
Chris.
moved,
Second.
so I take it, Chris has moved it.
Sue moved
Carlson
it.
has, okay,
Sue moved it and Ken seconded
all
it.
right, thank you. Have that, Terry Ann? Excellent. All right, any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now, thank you for doing that, but because we do online, I always forget, we have to do a roll call vote. And by the way, just for the new members, our microphone system, we need you to keep your microphone off until it's your turn, because we have a limited number that can go on. So, Terry Ann, will you please call the roll?
And speak closely into the mic. Commissioner Carlson?
Aye.
Commissioner Alt Burgess? No.
Aye.
Commissioner Alt G?
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Meadows?
Aye.
Commissioner Nowak?
Yes.
Commissioner Alt Xavier?
Aye.
Chair Arnrich?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Alts, Obringer, and Stepper absent.
Great. Thank you, Terry Ann.
Can we note that she's no longer the alternate, if that's what the alt is standing for? She is now
It
the
does.
primary member.
Yes.
As of yesterday, when we made the board appointments.
Yeah, thank you for that. We didn't
Oh,
get
Bert, okay,
official
yes.
transmittal on that yet.
Okay,
We need
and
that, so-
we can have the clerk make an official
Yep.
transmittal, but
That'd be great.
Diane is now, as of board action, the official member.
I will make that update. Thank you.
Great, thank you Supervisor Anderson. All right, now we'll go to our regular agenda items. Item number 8 under APC, there are no action items tonight. So we'll go to number 9, which is under Planning Committee. And the first one is just an informational item. And this is going to be introduced by Matt Kelly. And it's the final draft of the Richmond Parkway Transportation Plan. And Leah and Karina are here as well. My apologies for not saying that.
My understanding is,
Thank you, Chair. New
There he is.
Chair Arnerich, Matt Kelly, Principal Transportation Planner with the authority here tonight. I hope everybody can hear me. I apologize for not being there in person. I've come down with a nasty cold, and I think you'd appreciate, once you heard my cough, that I'm not in the room.
We do.
So tonight I'm here with Leah Greenblatt from WICTAC and Karina Schneider from Fair & Piers to present the draft final, or the final draft, Richmond Parkway Transportation Plan. I'm going to let them provide the detail of the plan. But really, we're here tonight to daylight this plan as it's been occurring under the auspices of WICTAC over in West County. And because this is a route of regional significance and not just in Contra Costa, but a Bay Area regional route, we wanted to highlight the work that's been done on this study. And I'll be back with you at the end to suggest some next steps for this project. But really, it's an information item to get your feedback that can be incorporated into the final Richmond Parkway Transportation Plan. So I'm going to turn it over to
Yep.
Leah.
Matt, just a second. Thank you for that. Can you give just a little context, as we have some new board members? Why was the study done? What role does CCTA have in that? And give us that, and then we'll go to Leah. And
I think Leah's going to touch on this, but really, it was WICTAC directly received a grant from Caltrans
Excellent.
to fund the study.
All right, thank you. Leah, it's all yours.
Great. Good evening. It's nice to be here this evening to share we're calling it the final draft of the Richmond Parkway Transportation Plan. As Matt mentioned, my name's Leah Greenblatt. I'm the Transportation Planning Manager at the West Contra Costa Transportation Commission. And I'm here this evening with Karina Schneider, our consultant, who you'll hear more from in a moment, and John Nemeth, our Executive Director. Throughout this process of developing a transportation plan for the Richmond Parkway, we've been very fortunate to work closely with Matt Kelly and other CCTA staff. As you know, WICTAC is one of your 4 regional transportation planning committees, but WICTAC is slightly different than the other RTPCs because it's composed not only of elected officials from each of the West County cities plus the county, but also our board has elected representatives from AC Transit, BART, and WestCat. WICTAC staff, WICTAC is also different because we have staff dedicated to assisting our member agencies with cross-jurisdictional transportation planning, which is what brings us here tonight. The need for the Richmond Parkway Transportation Plan came to light around 2018 as WICTAC was working on developing its update to its sub-regional transportation mitigation program. Staff from the county and the city brought to our attention that there was a significant amount of anticipated development in and around the Richmond Parkway, but no existing corridor plans that identified it needed future transportation improvement projects. In 2021, WICTAC, in partnership with the City of Richmond and Contra Costa County, applied for and we received approximately $560,000 in grant funding from Caltrans to develop a transportation plan for the Richmond Parkway corridor. After extensive analysis and public input, the final plan is now available on WICTAC's website. I think you guys received a link to that earlier. Today, we want to hear your comments on the plan and answer questions. And right now, WICTAC's board is scheduled to adopt the plan at its January meeting, and the county and the City of Richmond are planning to accept the document at meetings in February and March. And our grant essentially runs out at the end of February. So before we dig in, let's go to the next slide here. I wanted to provide an overview of the organizational structure to help you understand who the major players are in this planning process. So, you know, the money comes from Caltrans. WICTAC is the lead agency, but we are partnering with the City of Richmond and Contra Costa County, given that the project corridor basically runs through both of these jurisdictions. The WICTAC board has provided guidance on the plan throughout its development process. So, you know, it's a pretty integrated planning effort. On the lower part of this chart, we have technical input shareholders and public input shareholders. In terms of the technical input, we have the Fair and Peers consultant team, and we've also assembled a technical advisory committee of public agency staff who've been critical partners throughout this process. And these include staff from our local agencies, like the cities of Richmond, San Pablo, Pinole, county, AC Transit, but also, given the importance of this corridor and the broad interest in this corridor, we've also had technical advisory committee members from MTC, East Bay Regional Park District, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, Caltrans, West County Wastewater, it goes on. The TAC, as I mentioned, included staff from CCTA. We've been working with Matt Kelly, and other CCTA staff has been very helpful throughout this process. For public input, you'll note that the general public is listed there, the community, but we also have a public advisory group. Karina will go over in more detail how we reached out to the general public, but I wanted to explain how our public advisory group included representatives from business, community, and neighborhood groups, such as the Port of Richmond, Urban Health, the Watershed Project, the Community Housing Development Corporation, and the California Trucking Association, as well as representatives from the various community councils and the MAC along the corridor. As a regional serving roadway, we have found many public agencies, community groups, and business organizations are very interested in what happens along the Richmond Parkway. I'm going to now hand it over to Karina Schneider from Fair and Piers, who will share with you more details of our process and the recommendations included in the final draft plan.
Sorry, Leah, can I ask you just a high-level view again, because we have a lot of new people here. A high-level view, when you say plan, can you define what that is? Was this a plan for capital expenditures, for maintenance, for whatever? What was the plan's purpose?
The
High-level view.
high level is we wanted to identify projects that we could then go after funding for.
Okay.
That's
So
very high
capital side.
level.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Karina, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good evening. All right, just a quick overview of what I'm going to cover today. Following Leah's introduction, I just want to give a quick project overview, talk a little bit more about the corridor and our process, and then I'll talk about the priority strategies that we're recommending in the plan. And then we'll go over funding and implementation of those priority strategies and briefly on next steps. All right, so for project overview, our study corridor, as Leah mentioned, includes corridor that is within the jurisdictions of both the City of Richmond and unincorporated Contra Costa County, namely in North Richmond. So our corridor includes both Richmond Parkway and Castro Street between 580 and 80. Sorry, I'm getting some notifications on the computer here. Okay. So I wanted to note that this corridor is not only an important route for local residents along the corridor, accessing both of the freeways as well as destinations along the corridor like Hilltop Mall, but it's also a really important regional corridor. So in terms of good movement, the corridor supports both truck and rail movement connecting to the Port of Richmond to the south. It also houses key industrial and warehousing destinations such as Chevron Refinery, the UPS and Amazon warehouse distribution centers, et cetera. So it really has an important tie to the regional economy. It also is very aligned with the Bay Trail. The Bay Trail actually kind of goes on the west side of Richmond Parkway on the south side, and it goes all the way up past Point Pinole to the north, and can connect bicyclists and pedestrians all across the Bay Area. And so it's a really important recreational connection as well. And as you can see in this map, the hatched areas represent equity priority areas as defined by MTC. So a lot of our study area includes populations that are relatively low income and people of color compared to other census tracts in the Bay Area. And so we knew going into this project that community engagement would be a really important and key element of our process, making sure that we're really reaching those folks that live along the corridor. And I'll talk about that more in just a moment. Finally, as Leah mentioned, there's lots of planned industrial and residential growth along the corridor. So this plan really represented an opportunity to really plan for improved health outcomes as well as improved mobility in advance of that planned growth. In terms of our schedule, as you know, since we're sharing the final draft plan with you all, we're at the end. But it's been a great process, as Leah mentioned, working with community members, technical stakeholders, and policymakers over the course of almost 2 years. We had 3 phases of major engagement that I'll go over in just a moment. So the first phase of engagement really focused on identifying existing needs and challenges that folks experiencing using the Parkway today. And in that first phase, we held several pop-up, in-person tabling events, as well as presentations at community meetings. We also had digital engagement for that first phase. We had an interactive web map online. And in each phase, we actually had a digital engagement strategy. And we also presented to the WCTAC board meeting, WCTAC board in every phase, as well as our public advisory group. And in the phase 2, we really focused on exploring strategies, potential solutions to the challenges that we identified in phase 1. And phase 3 was really focused on refining those solutions, really taking input on our draft plan and our priority strategies. So these represent some summary stats from our engagement process. So through our 5 pop-ups, we spoke with over 140 people. About half of those were Spanish speakers, which is great because we learned that over half of the community along the Parkway speaks Spanish. Through our 3 online engagement tools, we received nearly 270 responses from over 230 contributors. We presented at 7 community meetings. 2 of those were in North Richmond, and the rest were distributed along the corridor within the city of Richmond. And to get the word out about all of these opportunities, we worked with our TAC and our public advisor group to help get the word out. And we also had Facebook, social media ads. I can see some examples here on the right-hand side that we translated into Spanish as well. So what were the goals of the plan? We had 6 goals going into this plan. The first was to improve roadway safety for all users, increase access to key destinations, improve public health, advance placemaking, making Bay Trail a really enjoyable place to walk and bike, enhance travel time, reliability, and efficiency, and finally support feasible strategies, ones that we felt collectively could be advanced. So in working with the community, we came up with a list of over 30 overall strategies that are included in the final draft plan. And each of those strategies are allocated to one of the 6 kind of topic or category buckets listed on this slide. So we have strategies related to public health, strategies related to safety, and specifically roadway safety, walking and biking strategies for both the Parkway and the Bay Trail, driving and goods movement, maintenance, and transit. In our second phase of engagement, we asked the community to tell us what types of strategies they felt needed to be prioritized and we're really excited about seeing on the Parkway. And so this slide is showing results from both the pop-up engagements, the in-person engagement we did, as well as our online engagement. And we did take demographic results from our online survey, and so we learned that the online survey responses do not as accurately represent folks living along the Parkway. So the results of the online survey did skew kind of whiter and wealthier than residents living along the corridor. With that said, maintenance and safety were one of the top 2 strategies for both groups. But the top strategy for pop-up for in-person engagement was public health, while the number 1 for online engagement was walking and biking. So I think this is telling us that it's really important to improve access and mobility for everyone, all users of the Richmond Parkway, but really make sure that we're not exacerbating public health issues in the process and really looking for ways to, in fact, reduce public health impacts. All right, with that, I'll move into the priority strategies that are included in our final draft plan. And just a note that these priority strategies represent the top 10 based on alignment with the 6 goals I went over previously, and also ones that the community were most excited to see. So I'll just briefly step through this list, and then I have some follow-up slides and some of kind of the bigger ticket items. And the draft plan or the final plan, we have actually cut sheets for each of these priority strategies if you'd like to learn more. So at the top, we have incorporate trees and greening into all infrastructure projects. This was really popular amongst all audiences that we spoke to. Next is to update designated truck routes in North Richmond specifically because that community is surrounded by industrial use, and so trucks have to get through that community. And so that process is really meant to identify, the community desired route for trucks to take. C is to implement no truck idling or parking zones near sensitive land uses like schools or housing. D is to install safety treatments at intersections, and I'll provide more detail on that in a following slide. E is to implement measures to reduce speeding and conduct a speed limit study, so we can actually conduct a study to identify opportunities to actually reduce the speed limit. And I'll also note that strategies within, countermeasures and treatments included in strategy D will also serve to reduce speeds approaching intersections. And strategy F is to upgrade bikeways in the Bay Trail and connect sidewalk apps. I'll provide more detail on this one as well. G is to install at-grade signalized Wildcat Creek Trail crossing. This was a really popular one amongst North Richmond residents and community members that we talked to. The trail currently goes under the parkway today, and it floods frequently throughout the year, and so providing an alternative crossing is really high priority. We did hear support, and based on past planning efforts, there is support for a grade-separated crossing, so a bicycle pedestrian bridge to go over the parkway. But in talking with our public advisory group and policymakers, we felt it was appropriate to look at a more interim solution, like an at-grade signalized crossing, and really look towards that separated bridge as kind of a long-term vision. H is to implement a cross-jurisdictional roadway maintenance program. This is a really important one. I'll also provide more detail on in a moment. Upgrade and coordinate signals along the parkway, and finally improve access to the Richmond Parkway Transit Center, which is essentially a park and ride lot for AC Transit and Westcat routes right off of the I-80 interchange with Richmond Parkway. All right, so providing a little bit more detail on a few of these bigger ticket ones. So improving safety at intersections is one I wanted to provide a little bit more detail on. Within our plan, we include a graphic that includes specific recommended treatments at each intersection along the Parkway and Castro Street, so at over 20 intersections along the corridor. And these treatments range from installing high visibility crosswalks, curb ramps, curb extensions, all the way to more comprehensive geometric changes to kind of tighten the entirety of the intersection. And so together, all of these improvements are expected to have a 43% reduction in bicycle and pedestrian injury collisions. For upgrade bikeways and paths, we wanted to advance this one a step further, and so we actually scoped to develop 35% design concept for about a mile of the parkway. And in speaking with our PAG and our TAC, we agreed to move forward and advance the segment of the parkway between San Pablo Avenue and just east of I-80, so kind of that northern segment connecting to the Richmond Parkway Transit Center. And there was agreement on that, a consensus for a few reasons. The first is that there's no existing bicycle infrastructure today, and so as you can see in this graphic, that the recommendation is to install a landscape separated bikeway. So this will provide a totally new connection for cyclists that will connect them to the Richmond Parkway Transit Center. And it also aligns with the City of Richmond's Bicycle and Pedestrian Action Plan, and so there's already kind of existing policy that supports this, the advancement of this design. Next is a roadway maintenance program. As I mentioned, this is a really big one. The city and the county are both really cognizant of how much repaving is needed for the corridor, and we've heard a lot from residents about not being able to see the striping and markings on the parkway, and it just feeling like a dangerous and hard road to drive on. And so today, the City of Richmond is responsible for maintaining the entirety of the corridor, and understandably find it difficult given that it has a lot of truck traffic, and so it's just generally hard to maintain, but also because this was built to be a major regional arterial. And so kind of a major goal of this strategy is to figure out how to infuse some kind of regional resources into maintaining this corridor, with the ultimate goal of forming an agreement between the county and the city. And just as a note on kind of the cost of repaving here, our cost estimates note that assuming that we build out repaving, over the next 10 years or so, estimate over 30 million worth of repaving effort is needed to really improve the pavement level to an acceptable condition level. And so it's gonna cost a lot of money in order to upgrade the entire corridor. And then on top of that, do annual maintenance, with cutting trees and upgrading signals and so forth. Finally, we have upgrade and coordinate traffic signals. This was also a really popular one. Today, most signals along the corridor are fully actuated, not coordinated, which contributes significantly to delay for all users entering or crossing the parkway. And based on our existing conditions analysis, we found that in the northbound direction in the PM, that's when congestion is at its worst. So it takes about 30 minutes to get from 580 to 80. And if signals are coordinated and optimized, drivers could save up to 13 minutes based on a sim traffic model that the Fair and Piers team put together. All right, we're going to move next into funding and implementation. So you'll see a very similar table like this included in our final draft plan, identifying next steps and future steps for the priority strategies. For strategies that require some infrastructure changes along the Parkway and Castro Street, the recommendations that those are kind of bucketed together into kind of segments along the Parkway. And so you can see this first row here would be to advance that design concept I mentioned, kind of the northern segment of the Parkway. And together that concept actually incorporates several of our priority strategies, A, D, E, F, G, and J. So the next step would be to go after grant funding sources or other types of sources of funding to actually finalize that design and construct that project. And then future steps would be to identify additional segments along the Parkway and Bay Trail to develop designs and construct. Next, we have public health strategies B and C. These are kind of our lower cost priority strategies. And so a next step could just be for city and county staff to just assess existing staffing and funding capacity to move these projects forward. And if there's not at this time, then the future step would be to look for additional funding. I'm going to return to maintenance in just a moment. I'm going to skip to upgrade and coordinate traffic signals. The City of Richmond actually developed a report with recommendations to coordinate signals in 2019. And so an immediate next step could be for the city to actually just review and take a look at these recommendations, confirm whether or not conditions are still the same or if things have changed, and maybe we need to do some massaging of the recommendations. But otherwise, once those are set, apply for funding to actually implement those signal upgrades. All right, jumping back to maintenance, we're calling this strategy out as we're seeing this strategy require a regional approach, as I noted before. So this strategy would implement a consistent management program assigned to upkeep the Parkway and provide a plan on what is what the maintenance is, what consists of the maintenance, how it's performed, how it's budgeted, and why it's needed. And so the very first step is for the county and the city to approve a memorandum of understanding for how this project would advance. So this can include information on staff time commitments, legal resources, additional consulting support that might be needed, support from elected officials, review processes, et cetera. So once that MOU is complete, a future step could be to actually figure out how all of that is funded and implemented. Which leads me to my next slide on funding. So project partners can explore both existing and new potential sources of funding. One guaranteed source is Regional Measure 3, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But some potential existing sources also exist at the federal, state, regional grant funding level. So we have some examples listed on this slide. And each of these would cover multiple different priority strategy categories. But there could also be new potential sources of funding to explore. So we have a list here on this slide, but want to focus today on a potential new countywide transportation sales tax or a new regional measure, which could be funded through a sales tax, increased tolls, et cetera. So I would like to spend a couple of minutes going over those first two in particular. But first, just want to talk a little bit more about RM3, Regional Measure 3. So again, this is a regional measure. It's managed by MTC. The funding comes through increased bridge tolls, and so project must be included in the expenditure plan in order to be funded. And right now, there's about $10 million set aside for Richmond Parkway projects. So kind of next step for lead agencies and project partners is to figure out where to kind of direct that $10 million. As I noted before, that north segment of Richmond Parkway incorporates multiple different priority strategies, so that could be a good first place to look. And then for a countywide transportation sales tax, this one requires going on the ballot and requires 2/3 voter support to pass. As many of you, probably all of you are aware, Measure J was the last countywide transportation sales tax to be approved by voters in 2004. And so there are talks of looking at a potential new sales tax. And includes projects like the Smart Signals project, which currently does not cover Richmond Parkway, but there's a desire to definitely include it in a future expansion if that occurs. And this type of funding source could also be very valuable for an ongoing strategy like maintenance. And then for a regional measure, again, this could be funded through a sales tax, property tax, increased tolls. Again, this would have to be, the Richmond Parkway priority strategies would need to be included in an expenditure plan, and this would have to go onto the ballot. And there are discussions within MTC of exploring putting a new ballot measure on the ballot as early as November 2026. And again, this would be another great source to fund ongoing high-cost strategies like maintenance. Okay, I'm going to pause here. I know we've thrown a lot of new information at you. So I've included the priority strategies on this slide, as well as what a potential new countywide sales tax could fund, a new regional measure could fund. And would like to hear from you, what you think the most important priority strategies are. If anything feels unrealistic, or what next steps we would need to consider. Any questions you have about the priority strategies, we'd love to hear more. Thank you.
Karina, thank you. One high-level view. I don't think any of us heard, how this is obviously as the county's planning agency for transportation. How did you, in your analysis, look to make sure that this complies with our countywide transportation plan and our definitions and the listing of this as a route of regional significance? I assumed you went through all of that and this complies.
Yeah, we didn't do a deep dive into the CTP. We looked at the goals of the plan, which are in alignment with the general goals of the countywide transportation plan, which we are in the middle of updating right now as well, which the Fair and Piers team is working on and I'm working on. So I'm well aware of what's going on in the CTP in that sense. Okay,
and last one before we open it to general questions. Just to be clear, I see $21.2 million of known funding sources, you said. And then I think you said it was $30 million of projects you have?
That was just for repaving.
So, okay, that's the only number you mentioned. So
Yes,
I remember. So tell us what the overall cost for everything that you're.
Yes, that's a good question. I do have a key on this slide that shows kind of the relative cost.
Total number.
It's hard to say because some of the cost estimates we developed for each strategy, there can be overlap in some of the strategies. So
How about a range? Because it's hard to have a conversation.
50 million, more than 50 million for sure.
And less than 60, 70, 80?
Probably less than 100.
Okay, so between 60 and $100 million. Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Let's go to questions, and we'll start with Chris Kelly.
Yeah, questions and comments. I live in West County. I travel on the Richmond Parkway a lot. It's a parkway, and so people are meant to go really fast. I think the speed limit's around 50, and I try to go 50 or 55. People whiz past me at 65, 70, and particularly in the afternoon going north, right now it's just jam-packed. So I'd love to see some signal coordination there, and eventually some sort of transit signal priority. I do agree with a lot of the commenters. Safety is really, really important, and the maintenance is important, because the roadway just really, really differs a heck of a lot. I think, right now, I heard from CCTA that we might have 18 million in RM3 funds specifically for the Parkway. So we could take a look at that. Now, that's not a heck of a lot of money, but it is something. And, I will say that CCTA is really good at getting funding, using funding to get more funding. And so I'm wondering if CCTA and WICTAC could get together and talk about, next steps and addressing the most important things that people really, really want and need on the Richmond Parkway. So I'll stop there.
So the CCTA is a partner in this, a very
Yeah.
active partner, and we agree with your description of their ability to assist in finding funding, and we would look gladly at continuing to work with them to seek funding.
Yeah, I realize that. And I know WICTAC knows all the players in the area, particularly in Richmond and around. And so that's the strength that WICTAC has. And CCTA has other strengths for getting funding and doing major countywide planning. So
Yeah.
that would be really, really great if you could work together.
And I just wanted to comment on the difference between the 10 million in RM3 money that we think is available and the 18 million that you
Yeah.
mentioned. There may already be claims on portions of the 18, there's a bigger number.
I know,
but then it gets
I
divided
know.
out, so-
There is a bigger number.
Yeah.
And I can ask some CCTA
Yeah.
staff to look into that.
Yeah, Hisham's advised us.
I know, I've spoken with Hisham.
Okay.
He's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Hisham and I have talked about it, but the IPR that's basically assigned to this project, so this funding is coming out of the broader Richmond Santa Fe Bridge Forward Improvement Project, right?
Right.
It's $135 million, and the remaining balance goes to Marin for the 101-580 connector, and so there was 75 million basically dedicated to the Contra Costa side of the bridge and associated improvements, and so there's 25 million for Richmond Parkway, 7 million's committed, so that does leave 18 million total.
Right.
Thank you, Tim. Chris, I'm sorry, I just was saying thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, that's fine. I guess just one other comment, and that is, I think it's important to pay attention to the lower-income communities, the equity priority communities in and around the Parkway, because as you mentioned, Katrina, they have to deal with all the fumes coming from the trucks, and there's huge warehouses along there now. So anything we can do to help those folks would be much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any, Ken?
So, yeah, I would want to follow up on that, because these are, AB 617 communities that are heavily impacted, and so again, reducing, the truck routes and the idling times. The other question I had, because again, the synchronization of our signalings and the upgrade of those signals, with the 2019 study, there's been a lot of growth out there. So there's two things. In one, I know we, as a county, pushed really hard for electrification of the vehicles being used in those warehouse projects and those delivery operations. But two, there's been a lot of change. So is that 2019 study really reliable, or are we going to have to kind of go at it again?
Yeah, they would definitely need to revisit the recommendations and assess the conditions that were assumed at that time and see if they need to do some updates. So that'd be part of the next step, is to dive into that a little bit more. Yeah.
And would that impact the overall costs that we're looking at? I mean, to implement another, or let's say a refresh, as opposed to a whole new study?
I don't think it would make a significant impact.
Yeah, and again, with one being a low-cost option, which would have a positive impact, again, especially on our AB 617 communities, implementing new truck routes and reducing idling and or stall, stationary times would be really good.
Thank you, Ken. Other questions? Karina, okay, sorry, go ahead. No. You go first, please.
Thank you, Karina. Thank you for that report. Certainly would have been nice if the state of California had stepped in decades ago to take on this road, which is truly, I mean, it's way beyond even a route of regional significance. I mean, we're talking about a major freight and transportation corridor. But I did want to touch just from the transit perspective. I know as the region is grappling with the congestion on the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge, there will be heightened conversations about, you know, trying additional transit through that corridor. And obviously, given the, you know, the home job commute, we have a lot of people from, you know, 2/3 of that commute comes from workers that either live in Contra Costa or Alameda County, many of them living up that 80 corridor. Did you, and forgive me if you've already really delved into this, but did you touch on the transit opportunities in terms of focusing on, you know, looking up to the Hercules Intermodal Center and a variety of key links that may kind of provide some additional competitive opportunities for that
Yeah.
corridor?
Yeah, great question. We did look at potential opportunities to improve kind of transit service, focus mostly on the study area around the Parkway. And we do have a strategy in the plan. It's not a priority strategy, but it's one of the kind of the longer list of strategies to investigate a new bus route that will connect people in their study area to Marin across the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge. So that is included in there.
And I'd like to add to that, this Strategy J, the Richmond Parkway Transit Center access, that actually complements the additional work that we've done about developing a 35% set of plans that covers I'll say the frontage portion of the transit center. And so in an earlier study that WICTAC did to improve express bus service in the area, we identified some improvements that could be done to the Richmond Parkway that would facilitate WestCat buses, express buses coming off of the freeway and getting them, well, basically shifting the loading areas so it would facilitate quicker on and off freeway access for those buses.
So, okay, great, that's really helpful. Just to follow up, I know that Marin County is very concerned about the congestion on the corridors, and they've been very public about their concerns about it. So I think the other thing about putting transit in that corridor, maybe elevating it as a priority may provide some really additional important strategic, you know, focus of this project. And because again, going back to be up just right above the Parkway, going up to Hercules and the Intermodal Center, when you look at the opportunity to connect with Caltrain up there, and the fact that there isn't any, I mean, that is the transit in that part of West County. So it's great. I think it's a really great opportunity to, you know, the idea is if you're going to run buses along a corridor, you got to have a nice pavement for them to run on, you know, and you know, the other thing is getting the freight community to really engage. And I don't know if you're getting mitigation fees from the trucking folks that are on that corridor. And as we know, the impact on pavement from heavy duty, whether it's buses or trucks, is much greater than cars. So.
Well,
And
one of
more
the
so with
things-
the electric, right? Since that's heavier?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Hopefully with this plan, we'll have projects that will allow the mitigation fees that are collected to be put back into the corridor, which is something that isn't happening currently.
Knowing the timing, it would be nice to have a bank, to be able to set up a mitigation bank, because obviously a lot of the construction's happening now, and so it would be great to be able to capture that for this important corridor. Great, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sue?
I just wanted to follow up on the bus route, transit stuff. Because I know at MTC, we've got this step-by-step process on the Richmond Bridge with the bike lane currently. In the long run, potentially taking that third lane and making it into a bus transit only or HOV lane. And so that sort of feeds into a little bit of that. There is obviously the negative side of on the bike lane piece of it, but hopefully they can come to some consensus on bike lane on the weekends, bus transit maybe only on the weekdays. But, so that sort of feeds into that as well. And then just going to Chris's point on the signal coordination, I always find there's a little bit of a conflict. You know, if you get the signals going so you can get more through traffic, then you usually get the speed as well. And so do you coordinate it one way or the other? Do you want to get the throughput, or do you want to slow down the drivers for safety reasons? And I mean, that's just,
And
when you get to that point, that's
yeah,
the
and
offset there,
signal
right?
coordination can be timed at certain periods of the day.
Yeah.
So it's like better coordinated for throughput during more congested periods and change during off-peak hours.
Yeah.
And also, this is a high safety corridor. You know, there's a lot of high collision corridor. One of the reasons why, a key part of the number of collisions that happen have to do with vehicles potentially running red lights. And we think it might be out of frustration, and so they're behaving inappropriately. And maybe if the signals become, better synchronized and coordinated, then we'll improve our collision history.
And I assume you're coordinating with some of the MTC on some of the Bay Area Trail items they're looking at as well, so that there's not a duplication with their efforts as well. Okay.
Thank you. Maybe Karina, two things I don't think we heard that I think are important. One, did you look at license plates to find origin, destinations, and things like that? So we can speculate, oh, there's lots of truck traffic, but did we actually analyze it, and are we just getting commuters passing through, or is it local survey?
We didn't look at license plates, but we did use a big data source called Streetlight to look at origin destination data. And so we were able to kind of look at vehicle classifications through that data source, look at truck-specific movements and personal vehicles. And we found that most of the personal vehicle traffic along the parkway is local. So most trips that are happening are not kind of throughput going from 580 to 80.
Okay.
But
and-
I want to clarify that. That doesn't mean that they're not regional trips.
Yeah.
Right.
Because a truck could come from 80, go to a UPS distribution
Right.
center, and then go back on to 80. So there's a lot of instances where the vehicles aren't necessarily going from 80 to 580, but they're still making regional trips.
Okay. And just the reason why I mentioned license plates, sometimes it has an accuracy as opposed to theoretical. Second thing we didn't hear is you mentioned the city of Richmond is responsible for maintenance. How much money per year are they spending, not on labor, for in-house labor? How much money are they spending per year in their budget just for the project, for actual physical work
For how much are they spending today on the parkway?
per year?
I don't have that number, but we can follow up.
So, really important, you're making a presentation and saying somebody needs money, but if we don't know how much they're spending, and also what is the ratio, if they're spending let's say they have $1 million a year, and we look at it and there's $800,000 a year being spent on in-house labor, and 20% being spent there. I think it's important to be transparent to us if we're going to be a funding partner to know what that is, because not all of us have the same set of priorities and how that's done. So.
Understood.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
good to know.
appreciate that comment. I will note that we include an annual maintenance cost estimate in the plan. So we do have an estimate for how much maintenance will cost. I just don't have the number of how much they're spending
Yeah.
today, because we know it's not enough. Yeah,
Well, but
yeah,
we can look at the numbers
right.
and compare them. That you might find, let's say there's $1 million a year, and you say it takes $1 million. Well, how is that million being spent now?
Understood.
And I think we owe it to our public to make sure that we're doing that. And it also plays a role in who ultimately should be responsible. What's the most cost-effective way to provide the long-term highest level? We have sections of that road, and I'm just estimating on this, that I would say the PCI in some areas is in the 40s, maybe 50s. There are sections that are very good. It almost looks like there's different jurisdictions in there. They're vastly different, so it'd be good to know all of that, so.
Got it.
Okay?
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, this is information only, but we do need to have public comment. So at this time, I'll open up for public.
I think Matt's got some closing statements.
Thank you,
Oh,
Matt. You were
actually,
so,
Sorry, before
so
Matt,
engaged, we didn't hear you.
before Matt jumps on, I just have a next step slide. I'll take one more moment. Just wanted to share, I think Leah mentioned this earlier, but we're having the WIC Tech Board adopt the final plan, as well as having the City of Richmond and Contra Costa County accept the final plan over the next couple of months. And so hoping to actually get started on implementation and identifying funding sources in the spring of this year.
Great. Matt?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Arnerich. Just wanted to follow up with some next steps actually for the authority to consider. We're here tonight just to get comments on the plan itself, but we think there's opportunities for the authority to be involved in this project and the corridor itself into the future. As many of you who were around during Measure C know that Measure C actually funded the completion of the Richmond Parkway. But we also all know that Richmond Parkway was intended to be, is a legislative route. It was intended to be a state highway route. But Caltrans, over the years has basically distanced themselves from any sort of adoption of that as a state highway. So, we need to find a champion for the Richmond Parkway. And, the city of Richmond, the county, and WICTAC have been that to this point. What we're thinking, or something for you to consider moving forward, is this a corridor that CCTA should take on, as part of the work that we're wanting to do as part of CCTA 4.0, where we would take over more management of these regional corridors and operations of the signals and like the smart signal program, things like that. So we think that there is an opportunity here, and perhaps we can bring this back after it's adopted by the project sponsors, and have that discussion about taking this over. And maybe the first step would be preparing a funding implementation plan so we can answer all those types of questions and come up with a path forward for funding these improvements and really nail down the costs and so forth. So staff would appreciate some direction, but we're not looking for an action on that tonight. But if it's to the approval of the board, if the board agrees, staff would like to bring this back for further discussion.
Great, Matt, those were some really, really good points. Thank you for adding that. Why don't we hold, since we haven't done public hearing, and then we can give them direction after that, if that's okay. Thank you, Karina. Thank you, and Matt, thank you very much. Now we'll go to open the public hearing. Terry, is there anybody online who wishes to make comments on this?
We have no public comment online.
Is there any written comments we've received on this?
No written public comment.
Okay, is there anybody here in the room tonight who'd like to make public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment and back to the board to give some direction. And again, we don't need a motion, just a general direction. Go ahead, Chris, sorry.
Yeah, well, I would like to see it come back and see if somehow CCTA could help with the funding as Matt is talking about. It's huge, and it looks like it's going to take a heck of a lot of money. And I would like CCTA to work with WICTAC, to the staff, the main staff, to get together and really discuss this and see what might be possible.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I think, our role, we look to find these major ones to get the highest level of service. What agency can best do that, and which agency has the longest horizon for that? So I think it would be good in coming back with that is to show how important this is to CCTA in our network planning and how our resources could fold this into the work that we do in other jurisdictions. And just so we have a confidence level from staff and from our management team as well. Amy, you had a comment, I think.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, again, on that vein of moving forward, clearly, a corridor of this scope is not the kinds of corridors that were envisioned with the return to source dollars for cities. I mean, that capacity is not there. I was trying to find what the Richmond share is. I mean, if we figure our transportation measure, 18% goes to cities. These are for, doing potholes and residential streets at the most, arterial. So it really is a situation that you need to look at. We need to look at broader funding in the future. And I looking at the situation with Measure J, it looks like those funds are having been spent. So that's again why I would say, I think one of the big hopes for this corridor is to look at it as not only a freight corridor, a local corridor, but a transit corridor. Because we're going to be competing across the state for funds, and also what is something that, and I don't know if you've done polling, but it would be helpful to know how this project would compete in terms of voter support looking down the road. I mean, that was the original funding source for this corridor, was Measure C. And so where are we, is it potentially looking at the next generation? And obviously, given the importance of it in it as a freight corridor, and multi-county corridor, it has a lot going for it in terms of getting funding. But I do think that in today, looking forward, there are opportunities that we would have if it really did include its role as a transit corridor. Because moving people from homes to jobs is one of the big critical problems with that corridor, and causing a lot of the congestion, both morning and afternoon. We're seeing it on 580, we're seeing it on the bridge, seeing it up as you reported out, Chris did. You try to get on that corridor in the afternoon, and it's jam-packed, so, yeah.
Sue?
Oh, I just wanted to follow up on the funding piece, because you noted the new revenue measure coming from MTC that we'll hopefully get legislation for. But sadly, there won't be a lot of funds returned to source likely for Contra Costa County and several other counties because of the fiscal cliff they're going to have to address on the transit area. So I just wanted sort of to caution some of those potential new sources as, one, we got to get it passed, and two, a lot of it may be addressing the fiscal cliff before it is able to have any return to source to Contra Costa County.
Yeah, good point, and thank you. And I know Candace will be working with you closely on that as that starts to rise up again. But I think the overall highlight, Matt sort of hinted at it, is that there are 4 RTCPs. They're part of a measure. They are the recommending bodies to move projects up to us. But we need to hear clearly that this is your priority project that you would like to see included in a funding measure. There are certainly portions of the project that we can do, because there are clearly, $21 to $30 million of funding that's potentially available within a reasonable period of time. But in terms of the recommendation, we need to hear clearly that it's a value proposition that your voters would support. We will do polling later, we don't do it individually, as the agency to find out. But I think we expect in each RTCP that you have the community input and you have the support to do that, so that we get to the highest level of success. But it doesn't mean that a project may not have a lot of community support. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. That it doesn't mean that there is still a reason that we need to do improvements. And the fact is there are monies available. Does that make sense? So, okay, is Matt, from your seat as our staff, is that clear enough direction?
Exactly what I needed. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much. It's really exciting. Good luck in getting this wrapped up here in the next 30 plus days. And we look forward to getting back later with our approvals as well. So, okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, this will, and again, that's just an information item. So this will take us to our next item, item 9B. And this is an action item presented by Ying Smith on the Low Income Fair Equity Program. and the allocation of Contra Costa County Measure X funds to extend the program for 2 additional years. Ying, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. Ying Smith, Director of Mobility Programs. Thank you, Terry Ann. So this evening, I'd like to give you an update of the low-income fare equity program, also called LIFE, and as well as ask you for the consideration of staff recommendation. Right, yes, this is good. Thank you. So some of you may recall that you were here when we first presented to you the pilot program. That was back in April. The pilot program started in April 2023. Oh, here we go. At the time, the authority partnered with Tri-Delta Transit, who is the first agency to try the pilot, and the pilot lasted for 6 months and was considered a success. We have gathered a lot of good information as well as valuable lessons learned. And in September 2023, the authority board approved the expansion of this program to add additional 2 agencies, County Connection as well as WestCat, together to make it a county-wide program. So how it works is the program is funded by the county, Contra Costa County Measure X funds, and the program provides 10 free one-way tickets to each income-eligible low-income paratransit passengers. Currently, each transit agency is managing their own program with really good coordination among themselves as well with authority staff. So next, I would like to just share some details of each agency's program. First, Tri-Delta Transit, they started, keep in mind, they're the first one to start. They begin in April. As of the end of November 2024, they have 264 participants. Really kudos to the Tri-Delta Transit staff. They have worked really hard to promote the program, get the word out, and also improve the process to make it more efficient and effective. For example, really a lesson they share is for them to include the program information as the ADA passengers receive their eligibility documents. And they have found that to be really streamline the process and also really mainstream this low-income fare subsidy for them. Next is WestCat. They began the program in February last year, and at the end of November, they had 20 participants. WestCat staff has also made very good effort in getting the word out and also helping passengers with their inquiries. County Connection, they have used Trapeze. They currently have a ticketless way to provide the pass, so the passengers don't have to receive a paper ticket. So it took some time to do the integration to roll this program into the current ticketing method. So as of November last year, they have 12 passengers. But we also see that the ticketless method is the way to go eventually. It requires some software integration, but it does really provide some convenience for the paratransit passengers, especially when you consider some of them may have like difficulties of like having so many things as they travel. So moving forward, the Tri-Delta Transit program is running to the end of the funding, so there's a need to renew the program. All 3 agencies are very supportive of it, even though WestCat and County Connection currently have a lower number, but keep in mind that this program took some time to start. It's a slow, like kind of increase, but a very steady rate. And there is like the staff all expressed very strong support, as well as Contra Costa County staff also expressed support to continue fund this program through Measure X. So based on the input, we are recommending the continuation of this program for 2 more years. There is enough Measure X funds to support it. So that goes to the staff recommendation is to ask for your approval of Resolution 2501G for the allocation of Measure X funds in the total amount of $880,000 with the breakdown of $400,000 to Tri-Delta Transit, $300,000 to County Connection, and $180,000 to WestCat to extend the LIFE program. To conclude, I would like to share a brief video, and some of you may have seen it before, just to kind of share with you the
I use the paratransit rides for my freedom. It gives me the freedom to go where I want to go and when I want to go.
The Paratransit Life program is a low-income fare equity program for our paratransit customers who qualify, and they would receive 5 free round trips per month to use on any paratransit trips that they choose.
I use the Paratransit Life program to take me to and from my doctor's appointments, grocery shopping. 5 days a week I ride it.
This LIFE program is really important. We want to make sure that we're maintaining people's independence and overcoming the barriers that exist in providing mobility for all.
That concludes staff presentation, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Great, Ying. Thank you for the presentation. Any questions of Ying at this point? Seeing none, well done. We will now open the public hearing. Terry Ann, is there anybody online who would like to make any comments on this, or written?
No online or written public comment.
Great. Is there anybody here in the audience live who would like to make any public comments? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, and it's back for action.
I'd like to make the motion.
Yes, please.
Do you need
Second.
it? Okay.
I bet you do.
I'm still learning, you know, the rhythm of this committee, and so, yeah.
It's dangerous having this.
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Burgess?
Yes.
Commissioner Alt-Gee?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner Meadows?
Yes.
Commissioner Nowak?
Yes?
Commissioner Alt-Xavier? Aye. Chair Arnrich?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner alternates Obringer and Stepper absent.
Great, thank you. All right, well done. This will take us to item number 10, which is correspondence and communications. You've seen the notices there. Item 11, associated committee reports. Those are all posted in your packet. Authority board and staff comments. Are there any board members who have any comments? Yes, Chris.
Since I see WICTAC's Leah Greenblatt and John Nemeth in the audience, I want you to know, last week they took several of us in West County on a great bus rapid transit BRT tour in San Francisco. We went on the Van Ness line, a little bit on the Geary line. It was really great, and I think we might try and do it again. Bring on some CCTA staff, maybe some AC Transit staff. If you've got any questions, you can ask these 2 individuals. It was a great tour. And we'll try to do something, I think, on maybe International Boulevard in Oakland, too.
Great, thank you, Chris. Sue?
I'm trying to think what we did in MTC last month. Holidays in between, yeah, a lot. But we finalized the final report to the legislator, I'm having a tough time with that word lately, on the select committee's recommendations for a measure. And I know there are already discussions ongoing. I spoke to one of the staff members of Senator Wiener today, and also staff members from Senator Wahab. So I know work's being done on it, and hopefully we'll have something to report in the next couple months on that item.
Great, Sue, thank you for that. I'll just add, if you saw the news, the morning news this morning, CCTA had about a 2-minute video on there, and it was actually talking about a Bay Area conference that was in San Francisco this morning that our executive director, although the story wasn't linked to him, it was the visuals that they used was our shuttle program in Rossmore. And it was really the context and the success, and they mentioned lots of statistics and stuff. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our executive director report.
Thank you, Chair Arnrich. Welcome, everyone. I'm looking forward to the year. 2025 is going to be a really big year for CCTA. You're going to hear this a lot from me this year, but this is a very significant pivot year for the authority, and I'm going to explain a little bit why. And we've been talking about this internally within CCTA quite a bit. So as some of you know, CCTA is doing more than what we have been doing in the last several years. We're doing new innovative things in our highway system, such as cooperative adaptive ramp metering. We're also looking at and operating today cloud-based transit signal priority systems with County Connection. We are also preparing a smart signal program across the entire county, 350 intersections to be exact, and we're partnering with all 19 jurisdictions in the county on that smart signal program. And we also are operating autonomous shuttles daily now. And I can go on, but there are many things that we're doing that are very much in alignment on all the things we've been talking about over the last 4 years relative to CCTA 4.0. Oh, and I forgot about the P3 project with Glideways, so we're also doing P3s. So as we think about 2026 is when some of these projects actually come into operations, full operations, such as the Smart Signal program. And so this year, 2025, is a big year to prepare for that in 2026. As we start thinking about the expansion of cloud-based TSP, we start thinking about what is going to be the next chapter of our autonomous shuttle program. We currently released a request for qualifications in December, and proposals are due at the end of the month in terms of what is available out there over the next 2 years that'll be commercially available, automotive grade, Buy American compliant, federal vehicle motor safety compliant, and I talked a lot about that today, actually. Commissioner G. You guys are reaching a point where I'm not even sure how. Yeah, right? Commissioner G. Was actually there in the audience today, and we were talking about the expansion of our autonomous shuttle program. And so, all of our autonomous shuttle program actually comes to an end at this end of this calendar year, as it's currently funded. And so we have to think about what is going to be the next step, what's going to be the next chapter in that. And we have a partner that is asking us to continue to operate mobility service within his business district. And so we'll be looking to entering into operation and maintenance agreements that we have never done before in the past. And so this again aligns with CCTA 4.0. And so this is a very important, significant year as we're kind of thinking about the future and thinking about the future of CCTA. And you're going to hear a lot from me this year about this as we continue through this together. In terms of how we're going to plan, how we're going to manage risk, how we're going to deal with funding, and how we're going to actually operate some of these facilities and vehicles into the future. And so it's exciting. 2025 is a really important, significant year, and I'm excited to do it all with you, and I know the staff is also excited to do it with you as well. Just to cut some other finer points here, the staff, there were about 6 of us that went to the annual meeting in Washington, D.C., the Transportation Research Board meeting It's the largest transportation conference in the United States. Approximately about 14 to 15,000 people attend. It attracts people from all over the world. Matt Kelly and Stephanie Hu were invited and did a presentation about our VMT mitigation program for the Innovate 680 program. And that includes like the express bus, the share mobility hubs, how we did it, and it got a lot of attention. Literally 4 or 5 people deep looking at this poster. And it got a lot of attention, and I think actually there's been a lot of follow-up from actual organizations across the United States talking to Stephanie and Matt about the work we're doing here in Contra Costa County. We also, Lindy and I spent some time on the Hill, mainly advocating and pushing on our mega grant. So as you all are aware, we were awarded a $166 million grant in last year, and we're in the final throes of getting that grant agreement executed. And right now Stephanie literally sent the final draft, I think yesterday or today, or I think it was yesterday or Monday. And so we're really pushing hard to get that signed and executed before January 20th. The odds of that right now, quite frankly, are like 50-50, I'm not gonna lie. But we're pushing as hard as we can. I know there's been some coordination with some of our members about helping to push on that as well. So the other thing that I wanted to bring up is the countywide transportation plan. So another big thing in 2025 is going to be the countywide transportation plan. And this is a different plan than you've seen or we've done in the past. And I kind of go back to one of the first CTPs that was done in 1997 that was based on Shape Our Future. This is this kind of plan. This is the plan that's going to shape our future for the next 30 to 40 years and really give us the next suite of projects and programs that are going to help support potentially a future expenditure plan. So it's really important that we all get you engaged and stay engaged in that process, and that's also happening in 2025. And part of that process is Lindy sent out, I know, to a CTP survey. And so what we're asking all the commissioners to do is, if you don't have it, we'll get it to you, but we're asking all the commissioners and representatives to share that CTP survey on all your newsletters, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you're at, social media, digital presence. This is really important to start engaging with the public, engaging with the community, and understanding what do they want to see in this plan as we kind of think about the future.
And Tim, can I say, it was also, I mentioned at the mayor's conference, it was all sent to your staff as well. So if you wouldn't mind, just double check with them, make sure they realize the value, because those are the portals to get the public input we need.
So, and then lastly today, as Chair Arnrich and Commissioner G we were talking about this, and I was invited to speak at the Bay Area Council Transportation Committee today. It was a Bay Area-wide presentation. It was with Waymo, Zoox, and Glideways and CCTA to really highlight the work that we're doing in the space and how we're able to look to innovate public transportation. I thought it was very well received, very well done. The comments were very good. The presentations were very good. And what was really exciting, and I was actually sharing in the kitchen earlier, but one of the metrics that Waymo shared was that 36% of all their rides actually connect to public transit in San Francisco. Yeah. And Waymo actually did a transit incentive program. So if you actually took Waymo to public transit, you actually got $3 off your next ride. And so it encouraged everyone to use Waymo as a first and last mile to public transit. And they did this all on their own. They didn't partner with Muni, they didn't partner with MTC, they didn't partner with anybody. They did this completely all on their own. But this is a great example of how we need to form public and private partnerships to leverage this technology to support public transportation. And there's not enough of that, and there needs to be more of it. And so, and that's what CCTA is all about. It's about connecting those dots and bridging those gaps, and that we will be able to support those new innovative partnerships. And that concludes my remarks.
Great, Tim. Thank you. I just want to add one other thing. Both Tim and I are invited to speak at the AV America conference, which is being held in San Francisco. And this is on the 28th, 29th. And I get to speak before he does. Anyway, any other comments from board members, ex officios? Seeing none, then this will take us to item number 13. You've got a calendar. Just note that at our next meeting in February is it's February, right? Our reorg meeting. And we will also be inviting back our outgoing board members who we'll be doing some special recognition for. So we look forward to seeing you, and we'll also have seated our other two folks will be there. And calendar events are in your packet. And with that, seeing no further business, meeting adjourned. Thank you.